Right, just for a bit of fun, I thought I'd do my top 10 favourite historic films. This isn't like a worst for best, it's just isn't really in any order. I just thought I'd pick the 10 that I've got and just talk about them a little bit. So, in no particular order really. And I'm going to start with probably the most common films, then work my way towards probably some of the films you might not have heard of, which I really like. Again, all these films are kind of like loosely based on history. Yeah, let's get to it. So, number one, obviously, Saving Private Ryan. One of the best films ever made, really. The only downside to this movie is Steven Spielberg obviously didn't quite realise that there was a lot of British, Canadian and Australian soldiers as well, not just American soldiers, but yeah, obviously it's based on the landings of Normandy in the Second World War and D-Day, and then it follows on from there. Tom Hanks is brilliant in this film. It's probably by far my favourite Tom Hanks film. I mean, he's done a few other films that I really like, but this is my favourite Tom Hanks film. And yeah, everybody knows about Saving Private Ryan really. I mean, don't really need to talk about it much, but it goes without saying, if you haven't seen it and you're into like war films, check it out. Number two, Braveheart. Again, one of the films that I loved when I was younger, still like now. Kind of based on William Wallace, and obviously when King Edward I was on the throne. And again, there's a lot of historic inaccuracies in this movie, but you don't really watch it for that, it's just a lot of fun. Kind of like the medieval period of England. Still really enjoy this movie. Mel Gibson is great in it. Yeah, so check it out again if you've not seen it. I'm sure a lot of you have. Another one. Now this movie, number three, I watched this at the Pictures in the year 2000, and I didn't think much of it when I watched it at the Pictures. I don't know why. I was expecting it to be like a full-on like war film, and it kind of started off that way, but then kind of not much happens after that, and then towards the end you get a lot of like fighting going on in the ring, you'll know what I mean, Gladiator. This now is actually one of my favourite movies of all time, but like I said, when I watched it at the Pictures, I was kind of like a little bit disappointed with it. I thought it would be a kind of different to what it was, but I really appreciate this film now. I think it's Russell Crowe's best movie. One of the best historic films ever made in my opinion. One of the best films made by Ridley Scott. Alien is my other one that I really like, but I don't know, I'd even say this is probably better than Alien, to be honest. I mean, it's a great movie. And yeah, Russell Crowe is brilliant in this film. Yeah, Oliver Reed, his final film. I mean, it kind of goes without saying if you're into your Roman history. I mean, this one to check out. Another historic film, Troy. Another film I watched at the Pictures. Kind of loosely based on the story of the Trojan War and Achilles, the Greek warrior. Again, obviously it's a myth, you know, but great movie, great war film, really enjoyed this one. I watched it again recently, still really enjoy this film. Yes, I'll try another one to check out. Now this one, it's very historically inaccurate, but still a great movie, and that's The Patriot, Mel Gibson again. I think this was 2000 as well, directed by the same guy who did Independence Day. Again, it's a great film, this one, but yeah, just take it with a pinch of salt. I mean, what's Mel Gibson got against the English at all? I mean, and yeah, it's about the American Independence War, and it's a great movie. It's just a bit over the top, dramatised. Yeah, just take it with a pinch of salt, but it's a great film. You know, there's not many films like this which are set in that type of era. You know, when the British had the Empire, and yeah, but it's a great movie, this one. So yeah, The Patriot. Again, if you're into history, especially like the 18th century. So yeah, it's a great movie, this one, Patriot. Again, still one I really enjoy. I think, is it Jason Isaacs who plays like the general in this film, the British general? I think he's really good in this movie. One of his best films. So yeah, Patriot. check it out if you've not seen it before. That's number 5. Probably a lot of you might have seen this one, Robin Hood. Again, Ridley Scott. And a great movie, this one. It kind of like, it either gets overlooked a lot, or it kind of got panned a little bit by critics, and the fans were a bit, I don't know what they were expecting, another Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, I don't know what, but I really enjoyed this one. It's quite accurate with what they do with King Richard actually at the beginning, where he gets shot by an arrow. That's actually true, that's what happened. But yeah, Russell Crowe is great in this film again along with Gladiator. It's probably one of my favourite films with him in. His accent in it is a bit questionable, but yeah, it's a great movie. And if you're a fan of like the Robin Hood story and you've not watched this one, or you're just interested in like medieval history of England, again it's another one to like watch, but again just take it with a pinch of salt because it's not very accurate, but yeah, it's still a great movie and far more realistic than any of the other Robin Hood films. Alright, number 7, Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World. This is actually based on a book, so obviously not a true story, but it is based on kind of like true events that kind of happened in the Napoleonic Wars with Britain and France against Napoleon obviously. And again, another Russell Crowe film, would you believe it? Yeah, it's a great historic war movie. There's also this like doctor in it who kind of like copies like say Charles Darwin, who he likes to explore and collect fossils and animals. So yeah, it's got that kind of thing to it as well. It's if you're into that sort of like era of history, it's an interesting film. It is a long film though, so but yeah, it's still worth watching. So yeah, Master and Commander, Far Side of the World. Talking about long films, number 8, White-Up, a western, obviously based on the OK Corral gunfight. Yeah, talking about long films, this is like one of the longest films I think I've ever watched, 183 minutes. The DVD's even got 2 sides to it, A and B. Yeah, you have to flip it over halfway through the film. It's a long film. Kevin Costner, Gene Hackman. Again, if you want to watch a more like romanticised Hollywood type of western film based on this, watch Tombstone. That's another great movie, which is kind of a similar film to this about White-Up, but I chose this one because this is kind of like follows the history more. It's more realistic. It's a great film if you're into your westerns and you're into your western history, you know, of the old Wild West of America. It's one worth watching. Just make sure you've got a lot of time in your hands because you're going to be sat in your ass for about three and a half hours, maybe longer, watching this one. So yeah, White-Up. I quite like western films. Tombstone is a better movie than this, I'd say, but because this one's more kind of like to the history of the story and that, it's probably more interesting to watch maybe. So yeah, White-Up. Good movie. Just a very, very long one. Number 9. Now this one, I don't hear a lot of people talk about this movie, and when I watched it at the pictures I really enjoyed it, and when I got the director's cut on DVD it was even better. And I'm like, have you seen this film? Like everyone's like, no, I've not seen it, I've not heard of that one. And that's King Arthur. This movie is great. I mean, again, kind of based on a myth, but kind of like what was going on in like the early medieval history of England when the Romans were pulling out and the Saxons were like invading. Hence we had a lot of like Saxons for hundreds of years in England when the Romans left. But yeah, it's a great movie, this one. I mean, again, if you're into like Braveheart, Gladiator, that sort of thing, give this one a go. It's a really great movie. Yeah, Clive Owen, he's like the main actor in it, but there's some other great actors in this film as well. It's a great movie, this one. If you're into like that early history of England when the Romans were sort of like there, it's a great one to watch, I think. I think there's quite a few King Arthur films, so just look for the Clive Owen one. Yeah, and get the director's cut as well, because it does make a huge difference, I think, because when I watched it, the pictures, it were nowhere near as bloody and as gory as this one. So yeah, really enjoy the director's cut of this movie. Right, and my last one, and the one that probably not a lot of people have heard of, because this movie didn't do so well, I don't think, in the pictures. I think it was released in 1990, so at the very beginning of the 90s, and that's K2. More of like a survival film than anything else, but I kind of put it in this list because it is loosely based on like true history of these two climbers that reached K2, and yeah, it's obviously about the second highest mountain in the world, and apparently a lot of people say it's more difficult to climb than even Mount Everest is, and it's a great movie, this one. I mean, kind of done on a lower budget, I'd say, than the other films. Very overlooked film. I hadn't really heard of this film until recently, and obviously it stars Michael Biehn and Matt Craven. Both the actors in this movie are really good, and yeah, if you're into like your survival films, climbing films, I'd recommend this one. So yeah, that's just a list of 10 movies kind of loosely based on history that I thought I'd recommend, that I own. Yeah, have you got any favourite historic films that you enjoy? Put your list down below if you wish, and please like and subscribe to the video, and I'll catch you next time.